then we're not going to have to cover everything up. And the other thing that we found with working with a lot of Unreal systems are nothing works out of the box the way that you want it to work. So, like, out of the box, a lot of the systems will work pretty well, but they won't work how you want them to work. So we've had to do a lot of massaging and messing with stuff to get it to actually do what we need it to do for pretty much everything, for like animation, for a lot of it. You just gotta knuckle down and go mess with stuff, see how it goes. Yeah, I'm sorry, Spawnbox. You'll have to PM me any links, and I'll take a look at them myself before posting them. So what is going on here? We need to look at this water again real quick. So what is the water set up to be? We got 512 and 1,000. So 1,000's pretty short of a distance. So if we did like 20, yeah, 20 is just going to be 0. Like 20,000, we'll get to see farther into the down there. So that'll give us an idea of how deep the pool is. And I think I'm going to make this in meters. So we are going to set the max depth here for this to be, we're going to multiply it by 100. Let's throw a multiply in here. I can't see the links. I don't know. It's just something with Twitch. Maybe it's me. Alright, so well, your stylized, or the stylized water material here has a lot of stuff. Like, it's got that shore detection, and there are some things, you know, that we could do. Like, they have the distance fields and other systems that can be put on here. But we need a lot more than this has to offer. And also, this is using like vertex deformation. You can see along it. Which we're going to try not using vertex deformation if we can. Or at least not much. Because we'll be running on top of it and other things. And if we have actual waves on it, it might look real weird. But yeah, there's no like flow on it, there's no ripples. Like, it has these little things that are basically just panning around. And there's like noise on the kind of the boxes. Or the, not boxes, but the decals on it. So we'll see. So hopefully, Spawnbox, that'll be level 1 of the water, and then we'll have, you know, it'll look a lot better than that, because it'll actually have, you know, you could drop a leaf on it, and the leaf will float around, and we'll also be able to draw, you know, that the water is disturbed by it, and we're not going to have to cover it all up. Also, what's nice about that you just posted there, that video, it's not just water in a frickin' square pool. like how many water tutorials have I seen for Unreal where they just have like this square fountain and they're like, oh yeah, we solved all the problems. I'd be like, you can't make anything other than this square damn fountain with this thing. It just doesn't work. It's like, well, that's not my problem. So let's chop off this to 200 meters. Is that right? Alright, so let's take a look at this again. Max depth in meters, 200. This is in centimeters, so we're going to multiply by Alright, well that's probably fine. Now why is this white? Is this object right here collidable? Yeah, it's got no collision on it. Alright, there we go. No more water levels, only desert levels. It's true. We could totally do that. That was like literally the first thing. Adam's talking about all this water stuff. And I was like, hey Adam, how about we just don't have water? And he's like, well, you know, like Brackenwood is, the world of Brackenwood is like 90% water. And I'm like, yeah? He's just like, God damn it. Alright, so we got this working out. So I think the basic settings work. I'm actually going to make this halfway translucent so I can see it a little bit better in the material. See what I'm looking at this debug channel. So let's throw an opacity on here. Let's just throw a constant on it of like 0.5 and just not deal. Just allow me to mess with it. So a lot of these edges here are this way because none of these are like nice smooth edges that gradually slope in. All these rocks are just like big stupid rocks. So I'm trying to look at some of these, the blending on these, and see like, well, is it because the geometry is screwed up, or is it because there's some other collision issue? It looks like it's all just the rocks are stupid rocks. So that's fine. The camera's always pointed skyward. There's totally water here, trust me. Yeah, definitely rezzing up that height map makes it look a lot nicer with this sort of setting. So I'm gonna save this as the default for this thing. height map resolution of 1024, and the max depth of 100. I think that's going to give us the information we need. Alright, cool. So now let's try to save this texture, and I need to fill up my water bottle, so I'll be right back. Alright, so we're going to figure out how to save our data here, because every time we move our water surface, we lose everything about it. You know, like if I just move this thing up and down, it disappears. So what I want to do is I want to save the data that's on this component, and I think it has to do with this transient flag here on our temp data. So I'm going to need to modify all this stuff, which means I'm going to need to save and close everything in the editor. Well, it's going to save stuff, and that was actually one of the questions: is how the hell are we going to save the U assets for this? Are we going to actually save the textures themselves inside of the asset database and use those later, or are we going to try to store this on an instance of a U asset itself? And what we kind of came to is I was going to try to just save it inside of the U property of one of these things, inside of a custom component. I was going to see if that works. Because if that doesn't work, then I'll just write out a U asset with the texture in there and write some way of cleaning up old textures that aren't used. But if we use like the U asset stuff there, we actually save textures in the asset database, then I don't really want to do that. Alright, so we can clear the textures, we can do all this sorts of stuff. Alright, so when we call build texture, we're going to call build texture when we have begin play, and that'll create our actual texture object. And this should save our data. And we should have our texture width and height that is stored properly. Okay, so that should clear up the degenerate case of like an initial thing that's not messed up. I mean, not set up properly. So we have the data reset, the texture region, all that. So we got clear everything. Well, let's see if we can save it then, and if that actually does what we want, just by not having this be transient like we had before. Because while we were working on stuff today, it looks like we already put in the safeguards to initialize all the data that we need. So we'll see if it actually saves or not. So the other thing about saving this is we're kind of might run into some issues. I want to see how big like our file gets on disk and things like that. Because it's like saving a bitmap versus saving a PNG on disk, right? Like there's a reason you have a PNG versus a bitmap, because bitmaps are just freaking massive, right? So if we're saving as like a color, there's not going to be any compression on that on disk, so that's going to be pretty wasteful if we're not careful. So we got to really understand what we're doing with this thing. So let's construct our height map, and if we move it, it turns white. So why is it turning white is the question we should ask ourselves. So when we call this construction script, we are going to set the texture size for our height map to our resolution. So we call set texture size, we are going to build the texture. So we'll construct this, and then let's move this object and see what happens. Okay, so this didn't get cleared here. We've got fill height array. We create the dynamic material instance that we call setup shader variables, where we grab the static height map texture and we call get texture on it. Okay, so what we're going to want to do is call get texture and see what that actually returns when we do this. So we'll construct this. Well, he didn't get called. Huh. Alright, build texture is... Excuse me. Build texture is getting called from inside exec get texture. Rebuild is false. Okay, so we have a texture, right? Our texture is null. Texture built is true. Alright, so we're creating our transient texture with our width and height of 1024. Why is our width and height 1024? Our width and height should definitely not have been 1024. Are we back with this bug where this thing freaks out? Yeah, we are. So this is a bug I've seen with this data init, where if you're in the debugger, it'll, for some reason, hang forever on this event. Like there's like a deadlock somewhere inside of this Windows event process loop with Visual Studio and this thing. Okay, so what this is telling me is that we aren't saving any of these values on our U properties inside of these components for some reason. So let's take a look at it. Yeah, well, if they were the exact same properties, then you would assume that the property would include the uprop, that would include the U properties on the C++ component. So I'm just reading if there's anything in the U properties stuff. Looks like there's the save game U property. Property should be serialized for save game, opposite of transient. It may be that we just need to put save game on this and it'll work. Well, let's take a look at it and see if that's exactly what we need. The other thing that we can do is, of course, we can expose the data to the blueprint, which is referencing this texture creator component. We can just have, the blueprint itself save the data on itself, if that's how it's going to work. I would just rather have these texture things be kind of self-contained in case I want to use them somewhere else. But it's really not a big deal. It'd be like, you have to remember this data yourself somehow. And in your construction script, you'd basically be like, oh yeah, okay, well I already have this data, so I could just, it's saved on the blueprint as a non-default value. And we have to go all the way to actually rendering, saving that texture in the asset database. Then just do that. Alright, so let's see, this is inside of this guy. Do we have any information on this object? It doesn't look like it. Well, let's run another experiment. Let's save it and see if we can reload the level and have this thing still be there, or at least have it be close to being there. Well, as with everything, the spawn box, it's always a matter of time. We find solutions to problems. Or we die of old age while we attempt to solve them. And I can just save it in the asset database. Like, I have access to the editor and everything else. And I already have autogen scripts and all sorts of crap that does all that for, like, our 2D asset import pipeline. So we can do it if we need to. Alright, so let's see if anything's saved here in this build texture call. Be surprised if save game didn't save anything at all here. Because your properties get saved, like, otherwise your level wouldn't work. So let's see what we got. Data's empty. None of this crap is getting set. And this doesn't get called again, does it? No, it doesn't. Alright, well let's see if there's if it's something it has to do with maybe TRAs of stuff don't get saved properly. Because I've seen that with like T-maps and other stuff don't always work. So we'll just figure it out one step at a time. I haven't used really much of the uProperties stuff. I usually just write all this crap myself. Like, we have the height map resolution of 1024, so when we do this, the texture width is 1024 and 1024, so theoretically when we save this thing, I would expect it to save the component. But it may not be saving the values in the component that are there. So it's like, it'll save the uProperties and everything that's on the blueprint, but not in child components or something. There's got to be something about the child components then that let them know that there's something to be saved on it. No, got nothing in there. Right, well, let's just Google it real quick. Let's see. I want to save uProperty on object. How do I use the save game flag? That is a question in the forums. Let's see. I already know save and load variables explicitly handled by a subclass of save game object. Base scenario. Save a single player adventure game with lots of doors. Each door is an instance of some blueprint that contains mesh components, event graph handling the behavior. The player can open or close a door. It's clearly not an unusual feature. I just want, like, there's an older post, but save game is used by F archive serialized internally when is save game is set. Any variable in the blueprint that has save game checked will be serialized. I've done this in C++, where I call serialize. I'm not sure if you can directly use save game in a blueprint only save sheet. So is there some sort of serializable flag or some crap? Yeah, interesting. So data doesn't look like it's getting saved at all. It gets defaulted to, the data that we've got, and there's got to be something else that's going on here. So let's see. I've got my example component that I wrote a really long time ago. And I mean, I can serialize uProperties into whatever I want. I already know that. But I want to store this stuff. So let's see, save modified view properties on object in editor and and then of course all this stuff is people arguing other problems. Let's see, you asset data. Alright, well I'm not really seeing that solution present itself super quickly here. So why don't we just try the other hack stupid solution, which is having a get data function. And we'll see if we can save this on the instance of the blueprint itself and just fill it at the beginning or something. I mean, that's what I've already got, is an array of F colors that I turn into pixels by rendering it to a texture. Alright, so all we'll have to do is just call set data and all that sort of stuff. And we should be able to call this just there. So we'll build that and see if we can save it that way. Otherwise, what we'd want to do is have like some sort of naming scheme for textures, where the name of the object in the game was the name of the texture inside of like a level/temp folder or something, and then we could just dump the texture out into that. And basically on construction, we'd search the asset database for that texture and slot it in. I mean, we wouldn't even have to search the asset database. It'd already be set on the blueprint, directly. When it gets loaded, so it wouldn't be a problem. I guess the construct scripts are, I wonder if they're even called when you actually load the thing from the map. Yeah, if we got something like that, I can always just have a a little thing there that figures out what's there. We'll see. I'll solve problems as I get to them. Each thing is just another step forward. Alright, so we'll have 3 variables. Have this. Oh, test width, test height, and test data. These will be color, a named color, a linear color. Alright, so let's call get data. Let's see if we can mess with this a little bit. So we're just gonna, I can't slot this in, only the exactly matching structure can be there. Alright, so can we just get, it's F color, it's a damned F color, just give me a color. Oh, well, what am I doing? This is just a named color. It's pissed off because it's not an array. Convert array of color structures to array of linear color. Give me a frickin' break here. I guess a named color is a different thing too? Yeah, it is. And I'm guessing slate colors are even completely different, aren't they? Well, that's just stupid. Well, let's take a look at F color. Is there like color.h with an F color? Alright, so the F color stuff is a little bit more do not implement or make public. We don't want people needlessly and implicitly converting between F linear color and F color. It is not a free conversion. This is true. So they got a whole bunch of stuff on F color, and it's platform specific, and that's why they're not throwing it anywhere in Blueprint Land, because that's not what Blueprint Land is about. Well, let's just test if the width and the height stuff works, and we'll know that we can at least save stuff if we need to. Alright, and inside of our construction script, we're going to snag these things, and let's just print them out. Alright, this is going to be the saved width and height for the height map are just like that. Let's save that guy out there, and let's see. Let's just construct this thing. So our construction script should be called, and the saved width and height are 0 and 0, so they are not getting saved whatsoever, even though we set them inside of our construct static thing. I think all I have to do is call this thing. I got a breakpoint set on the construction, so it should get hit here in a second. It didn't get hit? Well, it hit the breakpoint, but it didn't actually stop it because editor. So why don't we just do the whole logging thing again and throw it out here, because who cares? Alright, so it's definitely getting set, but then we don't get anything. It doesn't actually save this data. Let's see if any of these actually work like this. So we'll construct this bad boy, and we'll move it. There it goes. The saved width and height for the height map are 1024 by 1024. So if you expose them as instance editable, it will actually save the thing that we want. Alright, so what we should do is go to our uProperty params and see if we can set instance editable. Let's see what's in the uProperty stuff again. Is it edit inline? Edit this object reference inline in the editor. I guess this may be edit instance only. Let me see if we can do that and save some of this crap in here. Well, let's just crash this thing to the ground. Alright, so if we have edit instance only on this thing, this will be hilarious. We'll be able to see this array of colors, I think. We'll see how it goes, because if it's like we can edit this thing on the instance, then and I'll save it. It'll be pretty funny. Hello, Morton Barnes. What are you doing today? I'm just working on water stuff and figuring out how to save some data without causing huge issues. And I don't really want to have to save some data into the asset database. I'm trying to save it like in the level as opposed to in the asset database for some stuff, because though at the same time, I mean, I could think about like other things they're supposed to save on a per level basis. Like the landscape has these terrain layer U assets, and it expects a terrain U asset to exist in the asset database relative to the level for it. So it's, you know, even Unreal isn't doing this for its own stuff, so why would I expect myself to be able to do it? So let's see, our build texture component, our build texture should be called when we move. So let's see if we saved anything. No, I didn't save anything. Not anything at all. Oh, it got called again? It's empty. But we did get the width and height for the height map. They did get saved, so something is here. Just fighting the fight with a ledge blueprint? Sounds like a ton of work. Well, keep hanging off those ledges. Alright, so that's not the right one. So I think we're just not setting the right value here. I think it might be like export or something else. Like there's gotta be something, some U property setting here that actually makes this serialize when you save. And I might actually want to override the serialize itself and see if I can add some extra data to it. I might be able to do that, and I'll have to take a look. Certain data types into an instance on a blueprint. Yeah, that's kind of what we're trying to figure out. There's some U property data type here that actually flags this thing to get saved. And I could always go dig into the blueprint code and see exactly what it looks at, and then, because it's obviously saving stuff. So we're not there yet, though. We're still just poking around at the outside. And I kind of am liking more and more the idea of saving actual assets in the asset database and doing it like the landscape does it with terrain, grass layers, and crap like that. It's kind of calling me. I'm kind of like, that might be cool. I might actually want to do that. Because then we have the actual textures there, and maybe we don't need to clean them up. Maybe we can just... There won't be that many pieces of water. What would be the issue there? Well, I mean, if we dynamically created levels, I mean, as part of the dynamic level creation stuff, we'd have to do this crap anyway at runtime. Not the easiest thing. Let's see what we've got here. It's still 512. It's still empty. It's got nothing on it. Nothing did it. It didn't work. Alright, let's take a look at the serialize function and see if we're even getting called with the serialize. Maybe it's on a component level, you know? Maybe there's something that has to do with the components as well.